Welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, June 8th. Brought to you by Vunabaka.com, a residential surf community in the island of Fiji. First up, we'll take a quick look at the North Pacific significant wave heights for the coming week. Not a whole lot going on. Mainly, there's high pressure off the U.S. West Coast, creating a pressure gradient off Cape Mendocino, generating wind swell radiating down into central and southern California, but that's pretty much it. There's some hints of tropical activity here trying to get going off the northern Philippines by the weekend, and actually a previous one right before that, but none of it gets any traction, and then the week's over. So wind swell, again, is the norm for the North Pacific. And then next up, we take a look at significant wave heights for the South Pacific. Right now, not a whole lot going on. Minor wind-associated seas being generated, but nothing hitting the 30-foot mark, and that's really what you need to generate minimal 17-second period swell, and that's the period of swell it really takes to radiate up into the California, U.S. West Coast, Costa Rica area with any size. So at this point in time, nothing going on. But let's go ahead and look at jet stream charts and get an idea of what's going on in the atmosphere and see if there's anything in the future. So we're taking a look at jet stream level winds. These are winds 30,000 feet or above. These are the winds that actually steer storms and help fuel their development. We're looking for troughs, that is a bow in the southern branch of the jet stream pushing north. That would promote a clockwise circulation in lower levels of the atmosphere, and that is what generates winds and ultimately swell. At this point in time, so Antarctic ice is sitting here right about 65 south. The jet stream at this point in time is running right over the edge of that, so there's no troughs or anything here in the southwest Pacific that are over clear ice, and when you get over into the southeast Pacific, the jet's actually pushing into Antarctica. No support there. So let's just roll this out and notice the trend is really for the jet to just hover here right on the edge of the Ross ice shelf down around 65 south. Not a whole lot going on. You get a bit of a trough here out 84 hours. We're into Thursday, and it's just barely free and clear of the ice there. But it doesn't make much penetration north. Again, it's still hanging right there on the 65 line. As you roll this out, this is pretty much a zonal flow, straight flat west to east with no real troughs going on. We're out 138 hours, just continues ridging south in little waves, and then you're out 180 hours. Little bit of a trough here starts to get going. We'll go backwards a little bit here, starting maybe Saturday evening, Sunday. This actually looks semi-interesting if it were believable, but anything that's basically 7 days out on the models is not believable. Let's go take a look at the surface level charts. So looking at surface level winds, again, we're looking for fetch free and clear of the Antarctic ice. Antarctic ice is running right about here at 65 south. There's a little area, 45 knot winds here, but it just developed and it just as quickly disappears without getting any significant purchase. Another little system of interest here, south of Tahiti, actually southeast, but it's actually falling south. That's not a good sign at all. That's generating nothing radiating up in our area or even into Central America. So we'll sort of continue on that track and really notice high pressure here, southeast of New Zealand, ridging the whole way down. Notice these winds here are all pushing towards Antarctica, not at our area, basically driving the storm track over ice. That high pressure just hangs tough. See, here's a system, it's over ice, gets no purchase on ice-free waters, no fetch of interest therefore, and no swell being generated. And there's actually a couple of these systems sort of occur right here, diving southeast. Again, it suggests high pressure in the upper atmosphere, which is exactly what we saw before. And we're out a week, and we haven't seen anything other than maybe a little bit of a gale here on, when was that, Sunday, that's getting clear of the ice. That is, yeah, Sunday, 40 knot winds, and basically outside of even the California swell window by the time it gets going. So a fairly quiet pattern. Let's go take a look at the wave models. Okay, wave models, significant wave height chart. There should be no surprises here based on what we saw on the surface wind charts. But we'll roll this out. There's that little fetch we saw. Barely 30-foot seas for, what, 6 hours or something like that. That's not enough to do anything. Maybe Tahiti would get some background swell from that. Then here's that system we saw diving south, doing nothing. That's on Monday, Tuesday, and again, we're just not a whole lot happening. We'll roll this out. Then here's this system we saw. We're into almost Saturday now, and there is Southern California, barely in the Southern California swell window, and actually pushing north. Okay, so let's take a quick peek here. That's on the 185 to 182 degree path into Southern California, but then it too dies out. It's also good for Costa Rica there, and Peru as well, and of course Chile, but not a strong system. And then there's another one behind it. It also gets 30-foot seas. This is, if one would believe the models, this is 18Z Sunday, so we're talking a week out. Again, about the 185 degree track to Southern California, about the 181 degree track to Northern California, and it's so small, and it's pretty much gone really fast. Southern California stands a decent shot. Oh, and there we go, we're out of it. So really, say Southern California down into here has a chance of some background swell, assuming the system even forms. So for right now, we have a week of doldrums on the charts, not a whole lot going on. Let's go take a look at the long-term models. Maybe there's a little more suggestion of something positive there. So the thing we've been watching is a potentially developing El Nino. We'll go through the standard routine, check out all the signals, signs, and see what's up for this week. Currently, the Southern Oscillation Index has dropped down a single day, minus 9.42, but generally has been positive for the past month. These numbers, when they're positive, suggest the inactive phase of the MJO. Doesn't do a whole lot. The MJO isn't a strong influencer in the southern hemi. Years before El Nino. It's mainly the year after an El Nino if it were to happen. But as of right now, we're looking kind of on the positive side, not real supportive of anything. The 30-day running average is up to 10.35. That also is not real good. And the 90-day average is neutral, which is about probably the best representation of what's going on right now, just dead neutral. This is very similar to the winter season in the northern hemisphere too. Very inactive MJO, not a lot happening. And here's the 2-year graphical chart of the 30-day Southern Oscillation Index. Again, the giant drop in the SOI the first 4 months of this year, and then a big rebound into positive territory. If we're sitting down here in negative, that's suggestive of at least the active phase of the MJO, if not the development of El Nino. And on the top side of the line here, then that's the inactive phase of the MJO and La Nina. At this point in time, we were muddling along near neutral. Now it's even looking more inactive. Let's go take a look at some other data. First, let's take a look at 850 millibar wind anomalies. Westerly anomalies would suggest perhaps the active phase of the MJO, but we're not seeing that. Dead neutral, basically. And this is just maybe 3 degrees either side of the equator is all that we're interested in here. Here's Australia. The Philippines are out here, and then the date lines here. So it's just a completely neutral pattern. Weak easterly anomalies starting to develop just east of the date line. And then as you get into the East Pacific, here's Baja, Mexico, weak easterly anomalies. Not a whole lot going on, nothing particularly interesting. Let's go see what's happening a week out. Now here's the interesting situation. This model, this is a GFS model, is suggesting, and these are anomalies again, not absolute winds, just anomalies, enhanced trades easterlies on the equator a week out. An actual pretty good burst of easterly winds, if one could call it that, which is not conducive to the development of El Nino. Let's also go take a look in the East Pacific. That actually reaches the whole way south of Hawaii and then starts fading out. So the question is, where are these easterly anomalies coming from? We're not sure, to be honest. Here's another view of that same data, but going back in time to May 9th, and here's the scale here. So this would be the far West Pacific, this would be the far East Pacific, the Galapagos about here. As you see, we've just had and the yellows are in the inactive phase of the MJO, easterly winds, and the blues are westerly winds. Basically, for the entire month of May, we've just sat dead neutral. Here's this big patch of easterly anomalies that are forecast starting in the next day or two and supposed to run for at least a week. This would not be good if it were to occur, so we'll be keeping our eyes on it. Now here's the head-scratching part of the equation. Here's another version. This is outgoing long-wave radiation. If one were to see easterly anomalies of the magnitude that the GFS model is suggesting, you'd be seeing yellow here, or orange, or red, as strong indications of the inactive phase of the MJO. This is the statistical model. It's showing a dead neutral pattern, which is exactly what you'd want to see if El Nino were forming. If anything, you'd want to see the active phase developing in here. Now here's what's even more interesting. This is the GEFS. It's the GFS model in an ensemble version of it, where you run multiple instances of the GFS, giving slightly different start times and slightly different conditions, and then sort of average it all out. And what it's saying is, here is the active phase of the MJO developing 5 days out, building and working its way into the West Pacific. So this is completely contrary to what the GFS model suggests. So there's a bit of little bit of head scratching going on here as to why the GFS is suggesting easterly anomalies. We're not going to hold too much credence on it at this moment in time. And then finally, this is the jet stream level charts that goes out 40 days. The greens are what we'd call the active phase of the MJO, supportive of precipitation. Yellows and oranges, the inactive phase. But basically right now, it's showing a dead neutral pattern, and a dead neutral pattern continuing until basically the end of June. And then it shows this building inactive phase into July. But the models have done this a bunch, where they show, swing one way or the next for a day or two, and then, you go look at the model 2 days later, and all this disappears and it falls into this real muddled kind of just non-existent pattern. And we suspect that's what's going to happen with this as well. So for right now, no signs of anything one way or the other, which is actually good news. That's exactly what you'd want if El Nino were to be developing. Next, let's take a look at surface level, ocean surface level temperature anomalies, deviations from normal. Classic El Nino pattern developing here. Warm temperatures, you could almost pick this out and say a couple little pockets of maybe 3 degrees, but certainly 2.5 to 3 degrees above normal, all in this sort of triangle region, and then advecting off this way into the 1.5, 2 degrees, and then finally filtering down to maybe a degree or so. But basically it looks like it's 1 degree above normal over the entire, from the date line right into Ecuador, with much higher pockets in here. This is exactly what you'd want to see, and this area is strengthening. Next, let's take a look at this data in relation to previous data starting 320. Put it in animation here. Notice the cool pull off the Galapagos. This is in March, end of March, and really not a defined warming pattern at all over the equator. Put this into motion, you notice quickly by into April you're getting consistent warming but still coolness here. But this is really the main area that we're interested in, from about 120 to about the date line in here. We'll continue rolling this out and watch this just start building. When you get into May, the signal gets really clear. Notice the warmth here. Mid-May, by late May, you're getting much better warming as the Kelvin wave hits, and then we're into June. Whoops, and that was it. So we'll go back, take a look at the last since middle of the last month, let's say. And notice the warming continues to grow and deepen. So that's about it as of right now. So we're on the right track. Things are looking good. And here's yet another view of the anomalies. Notice 1 degree anomalies from well west of the date line the whole way into, well, South America would be over here. Also the interesting thing, so here is absolute winds. We have easterly trades, but the interesting part is right here, just a couple of degrees either side of the equator, it's almost light westerly anomalies. Not strong, pretty much dead, but this light westerly tilt, which still supports, I wouldn't say Kelvin wave development, far from it, but at least is leaving the door open to warm water transport at depth. And here's yet one more view, same sort of data, but here's the interesting part. We're going to zoom this in. Look here. So the scale's a little bit messed up. We've written to know about this. It used to be broken up in hard 1 degree increments, but now it's gotten a little funky. But here's the interesting little patch. This is 4 degree anomalies. I mean, tiny. It's not much embedded in this much, and there's another little patch right there if you can see it, embedded in the much larger 2 1/4 to 4 degree anomaly range, which we're guessing is probably somewhere more like in about the 3 degrees. So water temperatures definitely building in this region. This is all good news. Next we look at depth. This is the West Pacific, I'm sorry, here we go, 160 east here. The Galapagos Islands is about here. This is absolute temperatures. This is anomalies. This is the Kelvin wave that was generated by successive westerly wind bursts in January, February, March, and April. Basically, it hadn't changed at all. 5 degree anomalies sitting here. It's been like this for over a month now or more. These anomalies are working their way to the surface. That is how we're getting those warm, anomalous warm temperature readings around the Galapagos and in that area. This warm pool continues to build. This is the flow from whatever weak west anomalies, and that's all it takes. It doesn't take full-on west winds, but weak west anomalies over time will still allow a gradual migration of warm water to work its way. And I wouldn't say a Kelvin wave, but enough to keep feeding the warm pool. There's no cool water blocking any of the flows, so this seems to be healthy and going on. What we'd really want to see, though, is a developing westerly wind burst, and we're not seeing that at the moment. And here's yet another view, same thing. The date line's about here. Galapagos are about here. You can see it's really clear, just a standard flow, warm water. This was typically what you'd want to see for developing El Nino, and at some point you start getting cold water building here, and that's exactly what's happening. So this all looks pretty much on track, exactly what you'd want to see. So here's some other data to look at. This is actual currents on the equator, far west Pacific, far east Pacific. We're looking at the countercurrent that runs on the equator. It is flowing west to east, but from an anomaly perspective, it looks like it's having some struggles right here in the mid-Pacific. It's still flowing out of the west here. It's actually been building a little bit here, but these easterly anomalies developed a couple days ago. We still have westerly anomalies here. So this is all speaking to the increase in trades, lack of westerly winds, and the just general not a lot going on to really help promote El Nino development. We would not want to see these winds or this current changing and doing this sort of thing for very long. And we'll give you some other data here just to put it in perspective. So here's what was going on the end of May. I mean, we're talking only a week ago. Westerly current direction, very robust, westerly anomalies, and this had been going on for quite some time. And now we'll take a look at 1997, just the same time period. Here we are, the 1997 El Nino at the end of May, looking a little bit more robust than the current El Nino, but you know, fairly reasonably similar. Good transport of warm water from west to east. This is in May. And then also in June, noticed even in June it got even stronger for the 97 event. And then just more perspective, here's June 7th for the 2009, what was considered a weak to moderate El Nino. And even in the June time frame, you had actual westerly current or west-east current flow and anomalies. So what's going on right now is a little bit of a head scratcher with this pocket of easterly anomalies here. Now we're back to June 7th, 2014. So not sure. We'll continue to monitor this. All the other data looks good, looks positive. This is we've used this current actually to do early El Nino forecasting, and typically it changes when El Nino is developing. So to see this is perhaps a little bump in the anomaly data. Maybe there's some issue with the record, or maybe it's real and something's developing. The plus side, there's still westerly anomalies here, and that's really what we want to see. So we'll continue to monitor this. And finally, the output from the CFS V2 Nino 3.4 sea surface temperature anomaly model showing 1.4, 1.45 anomalies in the November time frame. This was up to about 1.75 at one point, but it's continued to get a little bit softer, and I think that's a reflection of some of the weakness we're seeing in just the general situation with no westerly wind bursts, a very weak westerly anomaly pattern. I don't know whether it takes into account the current and this little patch of developing easterly anomalies in the current there or not, but in general we're on track for some sort of an El Nino, maybe a moderate one, certainly not a super El Nino at this point, because we'd have to see numbers up in the 2.2 range, and we're not seeing that, but in general things look pretty good. So that's our forecast for this week. Surf-wise, pretty weak setup. I mean, there's a little bit of southern hemi swell that's supposed to be rolling into California on Tuesday, but small is the operative word. Wind swell is the main source of energy for Central California, Northern California, and a little bit of it wrapping into Southern California. Not a whole lot on the charts to look forward to at this moment in time. Main focus is, again, developing El Nino, watching that, seeing what it's going to do. But in general, you know, the wind swell is pretty fun if you can get to it and have exposure to it, and so that's sort of the main staple of the diet as of right now. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, Vunabaka.com. Check them out on the internet. Really interesting community being developed there in Fiji. Would be a great place to set yourself up for the future. Anyway, thanks again. We'll do this next week, same time, same channel. Thanks. Bye.